My presentation is called More Than Just an Accent, a Basic Introduction to the Irish Language. And the reason I named it that is because more often than not, especially for those of us Irish speakers here in the United States, when we say we're learning Irish, folks will kind of do the head tilt thing and say, oh, are you learning the accent? And then I can kind of launch into my promotion of the Irish language. So let's go ahead here. My goals for this presentation are to present interesting nuances of the Irish language and how it differs from the English language. Irish is a very ancient Celtic language, whereas English is more modern, if you want to think of it that way, and Germanic. I'd love to inspire you to learn more about the Irish language. I'm going to give you references at the end of the presentation to give you some learning websites and how to listen to Irish and so on. And then when we are finished with the presentation, you will be able to say Cúpla focal Gaelga agam, have a couple of words in Irish. So first things first, the proper name for Irish is Gaelga, or Irish Gaelic is also an appropriate way to term it. But in Ireland, it's really just called Irish. So it's pretty simple. So on plan, the plan. You'll be listening to spoken Irish by myself. And again, I am a fairly new student to it. So I've included 2 videos from 2 of my instructors who speak beautiful Irish. So you'll be able to hear that. Learn a bit of history about Irish. I'm going to review in depth the alphabet and the really unusual letter combinations that we see in Irish that really don't exist in English. I'm going to teach you some greetings, replies, and cool phrases, and you'll hear interesting tidbits in between. So an interesting tidbit right now is that Irish does not have words for and an. So if you were to look at the top of this slide and think, on plan, that doesn't make sense. Shouldn't it be a plan? Well, in addition to not having words for and, the word for the in Irish is an. These are the things that just blew my mind when I was starting to learn Irish. So on plan is Irish for the plan. So Eraigling, let's go. So Díomh agus fáilte a Carda is Misha Kelly. So hello and welcome, friends. I'm Kelly. Tá sulagam go bhfuil sibh go maith inmh. I hope that you are all well today. As a quick aside, there are different words for you in Irish that designate whether I'm speaking to you as a single person or ye as a group. So is this Earha, Pennsylvania dom, August Tommy Mahoney, Virginia, the Nismona Raskor Blian. So I am from or out of Western Pennsylvania, and I've been living in Virginia for more than 40 years now. Tommy Hain, August Merchela Jerry, and our Goni in Ashburn. So my husband Jerry and I live in Ashburn. I moved to Old Ashburn in 1989, and we moved to Ashburn Village in 94. So we've seen a lot of changes. Agus Tomachapol in Achoni and Aldi. Hank is Onamdo, and my horse lives in Aldi, and Hank is his name. Now at the beginning, during my introduction, I said Ismisha Kelly, which is a basic way of saying I am Kelly. I could have said Kelly is Onamdom. Tom ag fulham Gaelga o fiha. So I've been learning Irish since 2020, and is bralame. I just love it. It's tanga alling I erfad. It's a beautiful language altogether. And yes, it's not just the Irish accent. So I would encourage you, since I am not an authority on the history of the language, to go to the website udaras.ie or udaras.ie that will show you so much more about the history of the language. But I just want to point out it is one of the oldest written and historical languages in the world. But at one point, not very long ago, it was on the point of extinction. I put a quote at the top, Tirgan Tanga, Tirgan Anum. A country without a language is a country without a soul. And the loss of the Irish language for a number of reasons very nearly happened. Martian Hayne, however, at the start of the 19th century, a combination of scholars gaining more interest in the language and in its literature, along with many people noticing that spoken Irish was in a massive decline. The Society for the Preservation of the Irish Language was established, and Irish is now taught in school for all 12 grades, excuse me, as we think about it here in the United States. So, Sharaint da Scala, here's some good news. The language is changing, it's evolving while keeping the older parts of the language in place, and it's gaining strength in places outside the Gaeltacht, which are the Irish-speaking regions in Ireland. So that is wonderful news. Both of my instructors, who you'll meet later in the presentation, have students from all over the world, and many, many here in the United States. This is where I started my Irish language journey with Friends of Irish Studies in the West. This is through the University of Montana. It's a local nonprofit organization in Missoula, and it's dedicated to really fostering the language and the culture, the dance and the music and the sport at the University of Montana. And this comes from the huge number of Irish people who moved to Montana to work in the mines out there. I did not know this, but in researching for this presentation, I found that there is an officially sanctioned Gaeltacht, an Irish-speaking area, in Canada, in Ontario. And this is a wonderful thing, and it really honors the Irish immigrants who came to Canada, fleeing the Great Famine on Gortimore, and that Irish heritage lives on today. So in addition to Ireland and other places here in the United States and to our great neighbor of Canada, the Irish language is really growing and flourishing. Now, to talk about the three main Irish dialects, Cnuant in the Gaeilge. So there are three main dialects. The Munster dialect, Cnuant na Moon, is the one that I'm focusing on in my studies. So this exists in West Cork, in Kerry, the Dingle Peninsula, and there are even some sub-dialects of this. Now, if you look on the map to the east of the West Muskerry, you'll see a tiny little green spot with the word ring by it. And the Gaeltacht in Waterford is sort of the last bastion of the East Munster dialect. Now, another of the three main dialects is Connacht, Cnuant Connacht. That's in Galway, Mayo, and the Aran Islands. And then the Ulster dialect, if you go up the coast, up the Wild Atlantic Way, as it is called, the Ulster dialect, or the Cnuant Ula, is in West Donegal. I'm not going to speak a great deal about the Ulster dialect. I don't know that much about it. It can be drastically different than Connacht and Munster, which have more similarities to the Caidan, the standard Irish that is taught in schools. So another little side trip, rather than asking if you speak Irish, an Irish speaker will ask if you have Irish or any other language for that matter. So they would ask, An bhfuil Gaeilge agat? Do you have Irish? And in Irish, you would respond ta or Neil. In English, we would respond, oh, yes, I do, or no, I don't, or is that a language or is it just the accent? So I want to really bring out an interesting point in that there are not specific words for yes or no in Irish. You really just sort of toss the verb back in its positive or negative form. And I'll give you a little example of that right now. So the verb for listen is éischt in Irish, éischt. So if we were to say this very simple sentence, she listens to music. In Irish, that is éistin she le ceol. So the verb of, the form of the verb éischt is in the present tense here. And you will notice that the verb is at the beginning of the sentence. And that's how it is in Irish. The verb always starts the sentence. Éistin she le ceol. The really direct literal translation is listens she with music. I learned very early on not to even try to translate word for word. It just doesn't really work. So let's move on to asking questions. And it's sort of easier to ask questions in Irish because you just take the exact same sentence that you've spoken and put a little question word in front of it. So, as Berla in English, we would ask, does she listen to music? And we would either respond, yes, she does, or no, she doesn't. But as Gaeilge in Irish, we would ask, an éistin she le ceol. And again, just throw the verb back. We would say éistin, literally listens, or ní éistin, doesn't listen. So I would like you to listen to some really beautiful Irish right now. Irish speakers, Patricia and Joe. Patricia McGowan is the founder of All About Irish. It's an extraordinary website for learning the language. And I will give this as a reference at the end of the presentation in case you want to check into it.
Dialects, agus fáilteach. It's Mr. Joe.
Agus is Mr. Patricia. Tá riméadar in cuasa seo a chur ar fád. We are so excited to make this course available.
Siad a bheits a gcúrsa ná fólam na Gaeilge trí staidir íana trí físa litreachta.
Spellach iontacha seo an Gaeilge a ódum. This is an excellent way to learn Irish. By tú géisteach le fariacht wá agus by tú a chur le a stór focail. You'll be listening to great pronunciation and increasing your vocabulary at the same time.
Agus beta cuid aine súr scríbneoir den sco. And you'll also be getting to know 3 fantastic writers.
Tá go leabhar bailí chun an cuasa seo a dhéanamh. There are lots of ways that you can do this course. Bí géisteacht agus ag léamh ag an am céine, más maith. You can listen and read at the same time if you like. No is féidir tosú leis na hacuiní breise, an stór focail, an achhuimre. Or you can start with the extra resources if you prefer, the vocabulary builder and the summary.
Agus in the sin is féidir fólam faoi cúldra agus síthart na húda céine. And afterwards, you can learn about the backgrounds and the works of those very same authors.
Má bhí ceist ar bith agat, she'll rifas tugan ag info@allaboutirish.ie. If you have any questions at all, just send us an email.
Tásúlan go maith tú soltas.
Erailin, let's go.
All right, so Anna Heva Willem ag Fulm Gaeilge. Why am I learning Irish? I have been to Ireland so many times over the years, at a certain point, it sort of occurred to me that I had absolutely no idea what the language is all about, how to pronounce the words, what the really unusual letter combinations were. Sometimes you can sort of make it out on the slides, but other times it's just obviously very, very foreign. So I was really inspired to start learning Irish just because I wanted this knowledge. So let's start into the basics of the language, the letters of the alphabet, Litracha na Habiter. Now, everything on here is very familiar in terms of the alphabet, but there are a number of letters missing. So before we get into those, I just have a quote from Trelach O'Riordan. So he's the director of Irish Studies at the University of Montana. And he's a Cork man. He's from County Cork in Ireland. And Trelach says there are 66 different phonemes in the Irish language. And with only 18 letters to work with, you're going to get some really unusual combinations. So what's missing from the Irish alphabet? So there's no J, X, Y, or Z. You'll see these only in loan words. So for example, in the Irish dictionary, you will see X and Y chromosomes, but chromosome is sort of transliterated. It's just sort of converted into the Irish spelling. So X and Y chromosome, J words like Jeep or judo. So again, those letters don't exist in the alphabet. There's no letter K, so this is what the letter C is used for. There is no Q. Now, some combinations of C and various other letters will sound a little bit like a Q. For example, the Connacht greeting of how are you? How are you doing? Is Pinhui will too. Pinhui will too. It's not really a Q sound, but that word hui is actually CHAOI. There is no letter V, but this is sounded with combinations of BH, BHF, and MH in the Munster dialect. There's no letter W, but with those same combinations that are pronounced V in the Munster dialect, that is more pronounced as a W in the Connacht dialect. So let's start with the short vowels. In our minds, we all read A, E, I, O, U, sometimes Y. But here we see A again, E, I, O, U, and never Y in the Irish language. So there are two sorts of forms that the short A can take, such as in cat nap, that that we speak very much in English, cat nap, bat, hat. But more often in Irish, it's pronounced like the sound in cot or cop. The short E, bet and get, the short I, timid, bet, the short O, kind of rough, tough, and the short U is could or should. So these are a bit different. Now the long vowels have the fada, the shin of fada, the little slash that's over the top of them. And the word fada in Irish is the word for long. So fada, and it kind of lends itself to that. If I were to say that I had done something long, long ago, I would end that sentence with fado, fado. So the long vowels are, as you see right here with the pronunciations, A, E, O, and U. So I want to now introduce you to two Irish language tools that are the source of most of the really unusual letter combinations that we see in Irish. So Lenition and Eclipsis. And there are certain letters that can be lenited. So Lenition or Shevu and Eclipsis or Uru. These are linguistic tools that aid the flow of the spoken language. That's very important in Irish. These are specific consonants that are placed before or after certain first consonants of a word. It's a little bit confusing. I'll give you some examples. Again, the likes of these just don't exist in English. And again, these are the sources of most of those unusual letter combinations that confound non-Irish speakers. So let's start with lenition, or the shevu. So this involves the letter H. H will be placed after certain first consonants of a word to change how that consonant is pronounced. I'm not going to get into the rules of what triggers lenition or eclipsis. They're just mind-boggling. I don't have them all under my belt yet. But be assured that in spoken Irish, if you miss a shevu or an uru, you're still going to be understood. And that's really the important thing, to be able to communicate. So these pronunciation rules, the combination of H and other consonants, don't necessarily apply when you see these letters together within or at the end of the word. So lenition, the power of the letter H. So again, at the beginning of a word, if it begins with MH, that's going to be pronounced like a V in the Munster dialect or a W in Connacht. The same with BH, V in Munster, W in Connacht. Now, DH at the beginning of a word can either be pronounced like a Y or an HW at the back of the throat, and that depends on what vowel is next to it. All pronunciation really hinges on vowels in the Irish language. And these are my own interpretations of how they are pronounced, although they're pretty accurate. So for example, the greeting, Dialects, basically hello. Whit is spelled D-H-U-I-T, and that's where that whit comes from. Now, G-H at the beginning of the word is pronounced like a gh, way in the back of the throat. Here's an example. The word for wind in Irish is gwaoth, G-A-O-T-H. But if you say the wind, that kicks in the rule for lenition. You have to throw an H in there after the G, so it's spelled G-H-A-O-T-H, and the pronunciation is on gwaoth, on gwaoth. Now, when the letter F is lenited, it gets totally wiped out, as does the H. You don't even hear the FH. The rest of the word is pronounced. So just 4 more to go with lenition. The letter T, when T is lenited, it is pronounced only as H. Now, in the Irish language, there's not a sound like in the or think. It doesn't exist. You'll speak to especially native Irish speakers, and they will say tree instead of three, or true instead of through. The CH at the beginning of the word is pronounced like we hear it in Bach, kind of that German in the back of the throat. PH is the easiest one. It sounds like an F, so think of the word Pharaoh. And SH, like the TH, is pronounced just with an H. To give you an example for TH, the word in Irish for start is tussig, tussig. So if we lenite that, and lenition is very important in converting verbs to the past tense. So if I said I start, I would say tussig me. But if I wanted to say I started, it would be tussig me. So a rookie mistake when you're starting to read Irish is seeing that TH or the SH at the beginning of the word and wanting to pronounce it like we do in English. Now, there is the SH or sh sound in Irish, but it's just not done with the SH. The trick to that, the sh sound in Irish, is the combination of S with either E or I. So when S is preceded or followed by an I or an E, then it's the sh sound. Let's take two names that we're kind of familiar with here in America, Irish names, Siobhan. So, of course, the Irish spelling has the fada, that ah, that long A at the end. But because the S is followed by an I, that gives us the sh, Siobhan. The man's name, Sean, again, here in America, we don't have fadas, so we would spell that S-E-A-N. So the E after the S produces the sh sound, and then the A fada, Sean. Interestingly, the word, how we spell Sean here in the United States, S-E-A-N, is the word for old in Irish, and that's pronounced Shan. Now, I have an asterisk by the word agus. So, Siobhan, agus, Sean. Agus is the word for and. Sometimes it's spelled out like this. Other times, especially in poetry or prose, it's shortened to is. When I was first starting to learn Irish, and I would listen to Irish radio, just driving around, and mostly I was listening to sports. It's a lot. The speech is so fast when you hear numbers, but you hear repetitive words, and August was one of them. And I thought of this as sort of my linguistic meteor shower when I was listening to Arnagy, Radio na Gaeltacht. And I would hear Agus or Agus, and I would hear Gama, which is the term for good. And in listening to sports, Vichy, it was, Vichy, he was. And I would think, oh, there's one. I recognize that. So it was a rough start, but it was a start. Just not trying so much to understand spoken Irish as just to get it into my ear. So let's combine really quickly the fada and the shevu. So La Ela Padric. This is basically St. Patrick's Day, the Feast of Patrick. We have those A fadas with the long ah. The middle word, Ela. So again, when F is lenited, it wipes that sound out and we pronounce the rest of it. So we have the E fada, La Ela Padric. I'll also point out that when there is an E at the end of the word in Irish, that has its own syllable. It's very different than in English. Think of the words tile or file. There's that E on the end. It's not pronounced. When there's an E at the end of a word in Irish, it has its syllable, La Ela Padric. Lacunav Day, with God's help. We have that U fada, ooh. We have the E fada, A at the end. Emina Bjeltana, in the month of May. So we see the I fada in the tiny little word for month, me, Bjeltana, that E that's pronounced at the end. And then Kupla Madra. Remember at the beginning I said, hopefully by the end of the presentation you'll be able to say Ta Kupla Fakol Gwelga Agam. Kupla is the word for couple, so that kind of makes sense. A couple of dogs. However, when a noun follows kupla in Irish, that noun is always in the singular form. So if I were to say, I have a couple of dogs, I would say ta kupla madra agam. It'd actually be saying, I have a couple of dog. Just wrapping up with the alphabet, I wanted to cover very briefly on Clo Gaelach, the Irish script, this beautiful, beautiful font. This was created, actually was first written, it was a form of written Latin, so it goes way back. It was designed in 1571, which is amazingly just 100 years after printing was invented. And it was sort of for a written catechism that was commissioned by Elizabeth I. This style of typeface was used in books until like the mid-1950s. So if you go into a secondhand a bookstore in Ireland, or probably in the libraries as well. And in fact, I have a book here. It's from the 1940s that is written in the Irish script. A lot of it's familiar. Look at A, B, C, D, E, and F. Those make sense. Of course, we're used to seeing the Irish script used to write in English. The G's a little funny. It's almost like a fancy S. H, I, remember there's no J, there's no K. L, M, N, O, P. So we're good up until then. When we get to the uppercase R and S, those make sense, as do the following letters T and U. But look at the lowercase r and s. They almost seem to be reversed, or the first one looks like it shouldn't be there at all. The way I remember that is the small case r is, I think of, if you can kind of see me, I think of an arm kind of hanging down from there, and I think that's the little r. And then when I get to the small s, which looks like it should be an r, I remember, no, that's not the r. The little r is an arm. But that is the Irish script. Now that you know a little bit about Lenition, the way that is marked in on Clog Gaelach is there's a dot over the consonant. So a dot over the consonant, it could be the rule of lenition, but it could just also be any letter within or at the end of the word that needs an H after it. There's a dot over that consonant. So not only do you have to know some of the interesting forms of the letters, when you see that dot, you have to mentally put an H behind that consonant and then know how to pronounce that combination. At the very end there is sort of like what would be the ampersand, the special sign for August. So I'm going to take you for a little visit to Gugan Beara in West Cork. It's a magical place. It is in the Gaeltacht, so it is an Irish-speaking area. My instructor, Jane, who you'll meet later, grew up in the Gaeltacht, so Irish was her first language, really. The photo you see here was taken by her father. Jane's mom and dad owned the Gugan Beara Hotel here in Gugan. St. Finbarr's Oratory, the small church or chapel really you see there, dates from the early 1900s, and it's on just a little island in the lake. There's a little walkway out to it. But behind the oratory are the ruins of a hermitage that St. Finbarr started, and this was back in the 400s. Now, within the ruins are an outdoor Stations of the Cross. So for those of you not familiar with this, this would be familiar to those in the Roman Catholic faith or the Anglican faith. And just in brief, the Stations of the Cross depict the events of Good Friday leading up to the crucifixion of our Lord Jesus Christ. So these are weather beaten, they're really beautiful, but if you can see at the bottom, there is Irish script written. And you can see it here a little bit larger. So when I first saw these in 2021, this is what inspired me to look into the Irish script. And I was so pleased 2 years later when I could actually walk the stations and understand what all of these, what the words meant. So I want to have you listen to another a beautiful Irish speaker. This is Jane Lewisa. She teaches through her website Gwelga Le Jane, which is Irish with Jane. And she had done a TikTok when they were on just a little excursion to the Pyrenees. So I'd like you to listen to Jane's voice, which is so beautiful. She speaks only in Irish, but there are captions in both Irish and in English.
An bhí se caite chuig mé mar leitheanta sira go dtí na Pyréní, idir an Spáin agus an Mhaig. Fuair mar glúisteáin ar cias. Lá bhain chunig mar sneachta ag bar na sléite. Féach ar an gat glóide seo. Seo pinseos, fleis mar bia áitiúil tradiisiúnta. Chó mar siúlódí I measc na grán agus in aice ainacha. Chunig mar glór asanna. Má héantú go dtí na Pyréní, bholling na siúlódí seo. Cola de Caballo, nó Arbel an Chapel, agus Lago de San Mauricio, nó Loch Neve Mauricio. Bhí íomhnas an dúlra le feiscint, agus táimid súil go mór le fille ar na sléite sar bhad.
Okay, so now let's move on to Eclipsis or the Uru. Again, these really unusual combinations of letters. Again, still at the beginning of the word. There's a clever rhyme that somebody made up to help young Irish learners remember these combinations. So my brother got caught not doing dishes tonight. Nobody gets blueberry pie before he finishes. And it's a very helpful little rhyme while you're learning. So the eclipsis, and again, certain rules will kick this in, and this is sort of a busy slide, but if you think about when the rule for eclipsis is necessary, you have the first letter of the word. Think about the total eclipse we had in April of 2024, where the sun is the first letter of the word, and then the moon comes and just kind of wipes out that first letter. So here are some phrases. On Meg to Aun, will you be there? So that M has wiped out that B, Meg. Is bralling our got? So we love our cat. GC is pronounced with that G, gut. Onierna to kishta, did you make a cake? Now in the Munster dialect, that ND is very nasal, onierna to kishta. And it's very pronounced, especially when you are singing in Irish, the seanos, the traditional Irish singing. Trasnana Donta, like the song Trasnana Donta, Dulshir, Dulshir, across the waves. So that DT is just D. Aran in Noelga, a song in Irish. Again, that NG is very nasal, Noelga. Ibaris in Paris. And on Vakatu Mochapo, did you see my horse? And again, that's the Munster dialect. In Connacht, it would be on Waka to Mochapo. So, Ervaliv right frazi usadika a olam anish. Ervaliv right frazi usadika a olam anish. Would you like to learn some useful phrases now? So the usual hello, how are you greetings. So we talked about this one when we were I was explaining Lenition. Dialects, Dialects, God to you. And you don't have to be religious to use this this greeting. It's just the standard greeting in Irish, Dialects. In other dialects, especially Ulster, just from what I've heard, it's very different. It's more like Giajich, so it's a little bit harsher. The response to that is Dia is Merahwit. Dia is Merahwit. God and Mary to you. And the is that is in between there is the shortened version of Agus and. Conistontu. Yeah, that's very Munster with the N there. You see in the written Irish, it's really Conis Atatu. If you want to respond, I'm good, you just say, oh, Tumgama, I'm good. Tom Tirshak, I'm tired today. Tom Tirshak, I'm tired. And yourself, August Tuhane. So, the greetings would go, dia chwet, Patricia, dias merowet Kelly comes tontu, Tom Gama, August Tuhane. I'll just point out a little thing at the bottom, the August Tuhane. You see that you're seeing the word spelled F-E-F-A-I-N. That can be pronounced either way. It depends on the dialect, August Tuhane or August Tuhane. So some more things. Thanks, you're welcome, excuse me, please, and bye for now. So Gormagat is how you say thank you. And again, just a prime example of how you really can't try to translate this word for word. It just doesn't work. If I wanted to say thank you very much, I would say Gormilamagat. To Falcherot, you are welcome. Now, when I say falcha, there's a little bit of a CH in there, and it's not the CH like cha-cha-cha, like your molars together in the back. It's more like the tip of your tongue in the front of your mouth. To falcha rot. Gomalishgale. Oh, excuse me. I didn't catch your name, Gomalishgale. Lettahol or Lettahel is please. And Slán go full. That's just a way of saying, oh, bye for now. Sometimes when I'm finishing up my Irish lesson with Jane or speaking with my friend Kirsten, we'll just say, oh, slán. It's sort of a little take on bye-bye. So here are some fun phrases that you might want to work into your vocabulary. They're fun to say, and they're phrases that we use quite a bit. So the first one, lot of fadas, a lot of vowels there. Darira pira. Really and truly. It might be a nice response if somebody tells you like a bit of good news that surprises you. So for example, if I were to say, I will be going to Ireland tomorrow, I would say, Beg me ag dul go herring amara. And you could say, tira, really and truly. Oam go ham. So from time to time, the word for time is am, so am. And you're probably wondering where the H is coming from if the word for time is This is one of the ways in the Irish language by inserting letters or adding letters onto words where the words that are in that phrase end in a vowel and begin in a vowel. So you think about trying to say just go kind of stops in your throat, but go ham. It's just a way to help the language, the spoken language, flow. Anish is a rish. Anish is a rish. Now and again, And I can't tell on my screen the arish, that I should have a fada on it. Initius arish. Now the is in the middle of those words is the shortened form of agus. So even though there's an S with an I by it, that's not ish. Nish is arish. One of my favorites, Nabi Borha. Nabi Borha. No worries. Don't be worried. Literally, don't be worried. And this is another example of where the TH is not pronounced the. In this case, it's just H. Nabi Borha. Here's another good one. Togaboge. Togaboge. Take it easy. Nabi Borha. Togaboge. Take it easy. It'll be all right. Mahu. Well done. I'm always so happy when my Irish instructors say, Mahu, that you had a really good lesson today. Shin A, that's a really easy one to incorporate. Shin A, that's it. So I can say Shin A for the teaching portion of this presentation. Now I want to give you some references in case you're interested in kind of dipping your toes into the Irish language or maybe taking some courses. So you already know about these ladies here, Jane Lewis. So she teaches from guelgalajane.com. And Patricia Nicowan, the founder of All About Irish. So you can check out these websites. A nice feature of Patricia's website, the All About Irish, is that she has blogs posted on her website, and you can go and listen and read those free of charge. So there are little videos that are in both English and Irish, and it just gives you a nice introduction. Friends of Irish Studies in the West, friendsofirishstudies.com. I've already spoken about that. That's some fairly high level Irish learning, but it's a wonderful, wonderful resource. Now, I also want to point out that Friends of Irish Studies in the West and Guelgalajane offer intensive Irish language sessions in Ireland. And they're just wonderful. They really accelerate the learning and the hearing and the speaking of the language. Another website is michellethomas.com, and there are a number of languages on this website, and his teaching method is really pretty clever. But you can go on here and you can actually get a free lesson in Irish, and I believe there's also a free booklet that you can download. So Radio na Gaeltacht, so I listen to Irish radio every day. I keep the Irish kind of flowing into my ears. I don't understand everything, but there is a lot that I do understand, and it encourages me to keep going. The two programs that I listen to for the most part are podcasts, really, on Sale o Gas, which is predominantly the Munster dialect. But as you listen and as I learn more and more of Irish, I can differentiate between the Munster that I know from West Cork as opposed to what's spoken on the Dingle Peninsula and in Kerry. Another nice one that is more news and weather and sports is Aladdin or Aladdin. There's an online dictionary. There are actually a couple. I think this is the most simple to use if you're just starting into it. Folklore, folklorepunk.ie. So you just type in the English word, and then it brings up tons and tons of uses for that word. If you notice on the screen also, we know that Irish is Gaelga. You see it's a noun there, but you see the CMU and the little sound icon by it. You can click on the C and hear how it's said in the Connacht dialect, M for Munster, and U for Ulster. So this is a really nice reference. Tanglin is a little bit more complicated. It has tabs for English to Irish, or if you just want to type in the Irish word, it will bring up a lot of stuff in Irish and some English to that. You can also click on the grammar tab, and that will give you the present and past and future tenses of the word, as well as the habitual tense, and other ones as well. So it's a really good resource as well. And then there's a main pronunciation tab that you can listen to how the words are pronounced in the different dialects. So, tá sulagam go winshiv tanavas an lecht Welga show. So I hope that you enjoyed this presentation on the Irish language. I hope now that you can say tá cúpla focal Welga agam, that you have a couple of words in Irish. I'll leave you here with an Irish blessing that I received through the St. Patrick's Day postcard from Friends of Irish Studies in the West this past year. And I just want to say, Gorav Mila Mila Maga Agwiv, many thanks to ye, and Slán Gofol. Thank you very much, and bye for now.